Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is DJ G. Today I want to share with you some of the insights to the following. So we want to know what the brains does. I say brains because generally speaking we think we only have one brain inside our skull, but it actually consists of three different brains. We have the brain that does the thinking. We also have the brain that feels certain type of emotions. And also there's a third brain where we actually does the action, does the behavior. So these three brains, namely the limbic brain, the cerebellum, and also the frontal lobe part of the brain, they all kind of cooperate together for us to live our daily lives and to have our mind, because mind is what the brain does. It's its function, it's its job, right? So if you need to understand how the brain functions first before we start to handle the following, and this is the key topic for today, and that is the stress, the very infamous stress that we as human beings on daily basis go through. It's inevitable. I mean, there's many types of stress. You know, you have stress that comes from physical labor or hard, very strenuous exercise. You also have stress that comes from chemicals. You could have food poisoning or consuming too much alcohol or some type of drugs. You know, it can really have a stressful impact on your physical. And also, you have emotional or mental stress, and that's probably the very type of stress that we all want to avoid, because like you could get stuck in traffic or have to wait in line at a restaurant to get to, or a coffee shop to get your coffee or drinks to go, and you're in a hurry. So all those things that we go through on daily basis it gives us stress. So it's really it's inescapable. It's part of our lives. But what is stress? We need to also tackle and try to understand that we understand that there's all these different type of stresses, our stress response. But we have to understand from a physiological standpoint what happens inside our body when those stress hormones starts to get released, and what actually starts happening inside our body. Well, there's a thing called homeostasis, and we all know that. I know it sounds fancy, but homeostasis really means that your body inside out is functioning properly. It's functioning without any kind of barriers or obstacles. The blood circulating at the right speed, your heart's beating normally, and your brain's wave pattern is normal. So homeostasis is basically your standard average kind of like neutral state of being, if you will. But when the stress response gets triggered or activated, that's when homeostasis gets compromised or collapsed. And that's when you start to feel stress, like I mentioned earlier, all these different types of stresses. So when you go through this, when your homeostasis gets broken, a couple of things happens, but primarily what happens is you become very self-centered, right? You become very kind of self-serving. And think about it. I mean, if you're in a stressful situation, will you be kind and generous enough to help out somebody? Let's say a stranger. Probably not. You're probably preoccupied in your head with the problems that you're suffering with, and helping somebody or a stranger would be the last thing that's on your mind. So you start to have this tunnel vision, and you only get to see and experience and feel, especially what's right in front of you that's currently bothering you mentally. So obviously, when you're in a stressful situation, you don't really want to make a very, very important decision, especially when that's going to have a crazy consequence down the road. If you, Dr. Joe, that I mentioned before, he obviously specializes and he lectures a lot about this. And, when we're pressured or we're under the influence of hormones of stress, we tend to just focus on our body. So, what's going on in our body, right? Like, we could care less about anybody but ourselves. And the second thing is, like, we become more aware and only be conscious of the environment that you're in. And lastly, the time. Time management is obviously something that's always on our agenda. How we're going to spend the next hour, how we're going to spend the next week, so on and so forth, with your busy job schedule as well as your personal schedule and all that stuff. So, in essence, body, time, and your environment is the only thing that you become very conscious of or be aware of when you are influenced by the hormone chemicals, that stress hormones. I mean, so that's why I'm mentioning about this and sharing this, because when you are in a situation where you think that your stress response has been triggered, and you start becoming very self-centered, and you're not really acting the way you normally would, you should remind yourself what is physically going on, chemically and physically, from the endocrinology standpoint, because of all the hormones, stress hormones being released to your blood, and also how you're only concentrating on your body and time and the space around you. So when you're conscious of what's going on when you're stressful, you will be able to kind of observe yourself from a third person standpoint and be able to get out from that state of mind, if you will. The other aspect is that, again, I'm making a reference from Dr. Joe's findings, but he calls what's called the survival mode versus the creative mode. So most of the time, when you are, I think he says like 70% of the time, depends on the person, of course, it can't be the same for the entire population of the world, but generally speaking, one person would probably spend 70% of their waking hours under some kind of stress, whether mild or severe. So when you're doing that, because of all the explanation that I've done a few minutes ago, you won't be able to create something new in your life. Matter of fact, you're maybe repeating the same negative habits or negative reactions to life, right? So you got to try to understand that next time you are given a situation where you are stressful, try to focus more on becoming more creative rather than being on the survival side of the things, because obviously it's not going to serve you in any way or form or shape or form. So, the other thing that I want to mention is that a lot of time, when you get stressed, it comes from the fact that because you're resisting something. Our ego is designed to protect and secure our beliefs, of who we are as an identity. We all have our set of beliefs and very important factors that we think what creates us and identifies us. And if something from the external world or environment tries to defy that, we automatically try to fight that, try to resist that. And that's where the stress response kicks in, because you're resisting it. You're not accepting it, but you're trying to build a barrier or protective shield to protect your ego from being attacked or what have you. So that's where your energy gets spent and it gets depleted, and so you become very, very tired and exhausted. Notice that when you're stressed out mentally, emotionally, it does wear you out physically, because you end up wasting a lot of your vital energy, your ATP, in a way. So I guess the whole point of today's little video is to demonstrate and give you a very surface level explanation of what stress is and what happens when those stress hormones starts to circulate in your system, and how it affects your judgment and your view of things, and how you become narrow-minded, tunnel vision, and that only thing that really have your awareness is on in your body and your space and time. So, and you don't want to live your life like that, because obviously it's counterproductive. So I hope this reminder, I'm sure you may have heard this sort of information elsewhere, but I just want to kind of remind you of this. And wish you best of luck in the future when you do come across a situation where it might become stressful. Keep in mind that you have complete full control over your awareness as long as you keep practicing, just like as if you're working out, at the gym every day to build a better body. So hope this was helpful to you, and I'll prepare some more great contents for you next time. Take care. Peace.